Welcome, League of Legends players, to the 19th episode of The Recall, a Esports podcast. My name's Aaron. I'm going to be your host today alongside my partner in crime, Zing Lee. Say hi, Zing.
Hey, everyone. I'm the competitive league guy at DOT, and I am reveling still in RNG's victory at MSI. I called it. I was rooting for them, rooting for Uzi, and it came to be.
No one likes a bragger, Zing.
Hey, when it's RNG winning a title, you got to revel in it.
I'm sure they are. Uzi just pulled in what, like a billion viewers on his stream,
Yeah,
something crazy like that.
Something close to that. If you trust the Chinese streaming number.
Yeah. We got a special guest today, Joe. Why don't you say hi?
Hello, I'm Joe.
Joe is one of the freelance writers we have over at DOT. He covers League as well, lots of LCS stuff. I am the League staff writer at DOT. Zing, like Zing said, he's our specialist for esports analysis. So if you need anyone to tell you why SKT choked last split, he's your guy. So speaking of SKT, I know you wrote an article about him, Zing, about exactly like what they could do, and that was like a couple weeks ago, right?
It was a while ago. Because we've been focused on MSI, but it's they were kind of a mess. They got a little bit better, but then kind of still flamed out at the end.
So what do you think? Because they were. It seems like they were paranoid at the end of
absolutely
Worlds when they got second place, which by the way is still really good. It's not good for SKT, I guess. So they're like, all right, replace everybody, and then the new roster just like didn't fit. So what do you think? Do you think they need more replacements, or like do you think growth is the key here?
I think growth. They did kind of panic even at the end of last split. They turned away from a couple of their rookies that they were playing with some success, and those rookies had clear flaws, but they also had extra potential to do things more than their current players. Give them more in terms of, especially in jungle, than Blank was giving them previously. It's kind of funny because, right, like Peanut goes to King Zone and he immediately takes King Zone to another level because of his aggressiveness. But I actually think the peak version of Peanut isn't with King Zone. I think the best Peanut we've seen was still Peanut with SKT. With the amount of issues they had last year, I feel like they were the ones that were able to kind of make the most out of him and help him, like direct him and his focus a little bit more than he's able to have on King Zone right now.
Well, he was way more focused for sure, but he was also, I mean, it was a totally different play style. He was in way more passive. He seemed like a cog more than the carry or the leader. But yeah, you could argue that just worked better for him. At least with King Zone, it's almost like he's unhinged a little more, and he just like flies away with games sometimes. But the drawback is that he's more volatile. All right, well, we got a lot of stuff to cover today, so we're going to start diving into it here. We want to talk about, for one last time, I know we've mentioned it before, the ADC changes, the big ones that are coming out this week in this patch, and that's why I wanted to talk about it. We're also going to talk about Riot's sort of response, I guess, to the community's criticism over the patch 8.10 jungle changes. We're also going to talk about the cancellation of both the Azir and Ryze reworks that were floating around in the PBE for several PBE cycles. And then finally, we're going to talk about the LCS split that's coming up in a couple weeks. And we couldn't forget about Clash. Boy, oh boy, Clash crashed and burned. Really, really sucks. But first, let's talk about the ADC changes. So for those of you that haven't listened to the last episode where we talked about these, or you haven't been following the PBE or whatever, basically there's a ton of new items, new rune, and balance changes coming for ADCs. It's really going to flip the meta. Well, let me rephrase it. It's either going to flip the meta, or it's going to drive the current meta like home, like even more on a whole nother level. So let's talk about the items first. Particularly, I want to talk about the Stormrazor. This item, back when it was originally in the PBE, when we talked about it the first time, what happened with this item was it had a passive where your first couple of attacks when you entered combat were guaranteed crits, and then it was changed to your first couple of auto attacks had higher AD, and then it seems like the last version that's going to go live with 8.11 is that just your first basic attack when entering combat is going to crit. So what do we think about that? Because the purpose of this item, in my opinion, seemed like with the before guaranteed crits and then attack damage boosts was to give a early burst boost to like burst non-crit ADCs like Lucian, even Ezreal, Jhin maybe. And I don't think it's going to end up that way. It seems to me like it's accomplishing the opposite. But I want to hear what you guys think. So let me know if I'm wrong or not.
This really reminds me of pre-reworked Ashe. If you aren't familiar with the old Ashe,
oh man, it's been a while.
Where her I think it was her Q. I can't remember exactly what spell, but she used to have that bonus where if she didn't attack for a while, she got extra damage, and that's kind of how she worked. And then they reworked her so that her Q is like the complete opposite, where you need to be more interactive and you need to stack it and you need to be constantly hitting so that when you need it in a trade, it's you actually have it available, right? And so they changed it because what Ashe players would do is just kind of sit around, hide in a bush, hit you, and then just repeat. And it was like kind of non-interactive. It was like a weird way to weird trading pattern. That's kind of what I see out of this.
Yeah,
it's definitely strange. What were you gonna say, Joe?
I was just gonna say, I mean, it definitely seems like that. I mean, it's just kind of a more passive play style. I mean, if you have somebody like Ashe, or I think this still could even work with Jhin. I mean, if you just time it correctly, I think this item is just gonna go crazy because I mean, if you hold Ashe until you get her Q up, where you fire off those shots, or Jhin for the fourth shot, you get that critical strike, and then you get the attack speed, and you get the movement speed to just run down your lane opponent. I think this item is really good for bot lanes who are on the same page. I mean, if you time the Storm Razor to go active right at the same time as your support has their abilities up, you're just going to run down the enemy bot lane.
So I have something to say about Jhin specifically because I didn't test this with Jhin on the PBE, so I'm not entirely sure that it even works on him because he gets AD from crit chance.
Right.
This doesn't give him crit chance. It makes
it's guaranteed crit.
The attack just do a crit strike.
Yeah.
And I'm pretty sure he cannot deal critical strikes. I'm pretty sure his fourth auto critically striking is just always an execute. Yeah. So would this item even do anything on Jhin?
No, that is a great point. I mean, yeah, it doesn't utilize that first passive, but it still would utilize the second one. I don't know if it's going to be worth it at that point if you want that burst of attack speed and movement speed, because I mean, you're critting all the time.
It's definitely weird.
So yeah, no, I didn't even think about it at first, but I mean, yeah, it depends on the numbers. I think just in terms of what is that burst of attack speed and movement speed that you're really going to get,
or if it even works. Like they might work with him where like the guaranteed crit, maybe it acts like his fourth auto, or maybe the guaranteed crit means that he has 100% crit chance, which would boost his AD. But the tooltip doesn't like specify, so I just don't know. Like, I don't know.
One person I think this would be really good on is MF.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Because I mean,
she's already in a good
pair
spot.
You pair that bad boy with the. Oh man, I'm
her
blanking
passive,
here.
Just on a normal basic attack, her passive.
Yeah.
But then,
I was gonna say
if it
one
carries over on
item.
her Q. If it carries over on the second half of her Q, because her Q.
Oh yeah. Ooh. Well, it has a guaranteed crit anyway if you use it right.
Right.
But I was thinking with like a rapid fire cannon. Yeah. If she lands like a Q bounce and then the extra long range auto attack from rapid fire and then it's a guaranteed crit, like that's a huge burst. Here's my issue though. This item was supposed to like bring to light like the non-crit ADCs originally.
I don't think.
And now
I think it even just morphs like non-crit ADCs into crit ADCs. Like,
yeah, that's what I was thinking. Like, I'm pretty sure it's just pigeonholing everybody into crit at this point.
I mean, this is maybe a little bit out, but
because even the damage of the guaranteed crit scales with your crit chance. So like you have to build crit chance to like get the most out of the item. So you're going back to that same old build anyway.
I mean, it's just, are you ready for crit Ezreal?
Yeah, well,
Ezreal can't proc on a Q at least, right?
So hold on, I thought it did. I thought that
Does
his
it?
Q procced crits. It doesn't.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure his Q doesn't.
Corrected me on someone corrected me on Twitter, and I had to go back. That's what I was
Now the
updating
dream
the
is
article.
ruined.
Right, yeah.
I was updating the article right before this.
If Israel Q
because
could
I was
proc,
corrected,
it would
and I
be
was really
broken.
embarrassed about it. But yeah, yeah, it can't. I looked it up. It used to be able to, like way back in like 2012.
Bring it back.
Yeah.
Bring it back.
And last year I thought it could, but it turns out that it could proc a static Shiv crit, but it couldn't crit itself.
Right.
So I think I just got it mixed up. But
so
Ezreal wouldn't really get much out of it. Not much more than the other like champs that could get it.
So have you tried
Gleam in the eye?
There's one more I want to think about. Have you tried GP?
I did try it on GP. Because it gives him the guaranteed crit on his Q.
Right.
The issue is the crit damage is like kind of weak early in the game.
Got it.
And he's already like Triforce is still more effective.
Sure.
Sterix isn't anymore.
Right.
So this might be a good like second item.
Yeah, it could be a good second item.
But it's definitely not a good like first item, which it would be for the ADCs that could use it.
It's not really a meta without GP at this point, is it?
No, he's all over the place.
But I mean,
it's either tank GP or he's like lethality or something.
I could see it working really well with him, though.
Always something.
As long as he's in lane, because he can wait for his passive to come up too.
Yeah,
and just kind of hit you
it gives
for
him
a truckload of damage all at once.
So here's what I think could work. I didn't try this, but you could just build the Sheen and then build this. Because that would give him like a good chunk of like trading damage without having to get
like
into
half your health just in one Q.
One auto,
like real early. Like that's some pretty early reliable damage for him. So yeah, that could work. I did not try that though. I did build it after the Triforce and it worked. But just because of how long the Trinity Force takes to build, I was laning phase is almost over by the time I got it. So that's probably why. So I think that would work way better. Well, it'd be interesting to see. Let's talk about the next item, the Infinity Edge. And for those of you that don't know, I think we specifically like spelled out what the passive was the last time. It actually hasn't changed. So it's the same as back when we talked about it the first time. So basically, it no longer gives you a flat boost to your crit chance. It doesn't have the 20% anymore. And it doesn't give you a damage boost on your crit strikes. Instead, it doubles whatever crit chance you have, like Yasuo's passive, and it converts, I think, 15% of your crit strike damage into true damage. So this item would be crazy on Jhin.
Yep.
Absolutely nuts. Mm-hmm. Because he has one crit AD item. Pop the new Infinity Edge in there. He gets the 80 AD from the item, and then it doubles his crit, which gives him a massive bonus AD boost. Absolutely massive.
Right.
And he has hundreds. He's probably up in like the 300s with 2 items, which is insane.
The other part is he doesn't really need he normally doesn't build much armor shred. So having true damage is huge for him.
Yeah, massive. Absolutely massive. And then pair that up with the new Hail of Blades rune, and he is going to be absolutely crazy. Hail of Blades gives you... It's the new Domination Keystone rune that's geared towards burst ADCs. Yep. And what happens is when you enter combat, your first 3 basic attacks, you have from 50 to 100% more attack speed. So attack speed, just like crit chance on Jhin, is converted to AD. So he gets the insane AD boost from the Infinity Edge. Oh my god, this is nuts. I'm just the rest of it just came together in my head. So you get the insane crit boost from the Infinity Edge, which gives him a huge AD boost on top of the high AD he already has. And then if you get up to 100% attack speed, that also gets converted into a huge chunk of AD. And then on top of that, the Infinity Edge causes crit strikes to deal true damage. So Jhin has massive AD for his first 3 attacks, his weakest attacks. His 4th attack comes around, which is an execute and deals bonus damage, which counts as his crit, now deals true damage.
It's kind of nuts.
At this point, it's like...
So he has 4 super hard-hitting auto attacks, capped off, and the last one is an execute that deals true damage. That is insane. Oh my god. He's going to be strong. Absolutely.
No,
100%.
I mean, it just seems geared towards him.
Yeah, it seems like it was made with him in mind.
Yeah. Even though he's, I mean, not the most prevalent ADC in the meta, but when you do see Jin in the meta, he's typically he's almost overpowering most of the time.
Yeah, he's like a Kalista type of player or a champion.
Yeah, which bringing up Kalista, does these like the Halo Blades and Infinity Age, do these bring her back a little bit? I mean, with the Hail of Blades, if you're getting attack speed from your first 3 basic attacks, you're always about ramping up your attack speed, and you're already building a crit item first on Kalista, typically with like Runads. So I don't know if you've tested this or anything, but I mean, just looking at it a little bit, maybe it could.
I think there's hope for Kalista, but not in those items. Okay. I think the hope that's coming for Kalista is a combination of things. The first is Hail of Blades, which gives the massive attack speed boost for the first couple attacks, which allows her to get boom, 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 3 run stacks on you just like that.
Stack up the runs.
What I think is going to help her more is the sizable, the stat changes, but the sizable cost reduction on non-crit items.
Yeah.
Bork costs 200 less.
Yep.
Bloodthirster. So what I think might actually help Kalista is there's a 200 gold cost reduction coming for the Bork and a 200 gold cost reduction coming for the Bloodthirster. And so those are big. Those used to be big items on her, and then she started building a little more crit. But Zeal items and Infinity Edge cost way more now, so she has access to those items that were strong on her at one point. She can get them way earlier now than the other items. And on top of that, she gets, like I said, the Hail of Blades, Bing Bang Boom, 3 run stacks, and then she can cap the build off with a Gwynsu's to just get that like mid to late game bonus AD crazy steroid that you get from that. So I think there's definitely hope for Kalista. And yes, that does sound like it would make her stronger.
And her AD is, I think, tops among marksmen now.
Yes,
her base is 62,
but
and
her range is still awful.
Right. Yeah, that's definitely weakness. But I think she's going to end with the highest base AD among all marksmen. She starts higher, and she scales much more than all the rest of them as well.
Yeah, so she sounds like she's going to be. She's definitely going to be helped by this patch, but it's hard to imagine she'll be like meta again, because then you can just look across the table at like Jin, and I mean he's OP, and then you think about my God. So one of the things I covered these ADC items in a big article today. So one of the things that I mentioned, and I'm gonna kind of just steal back from the article I wrote because it seems like a good analogy. I guess it's not really an analogy. Good description. So it seems like while a lot of these items and runes were designed to help burst ADCs and non-crit ADCs find more purpose, imagine Twitch comes out of stealth. Alts. His first 3 auto attacks, he has 100% attack speed. More attack speed from Hail of Blades. The first one is a guaranteed crit from Stormrazor. And the rest of them, and that guaranteed crit deals true damage from the Infinity Edge. And then even after he gets that insane steroid for the first 3 attacks, he's still dealing good crit damage with sustained attack speed. So, and then you could say the same about Tristana if she jumps on you. You can say the same about Kog'Maw. He ults and then bing bang boom. You can say the same about and then the Essence Reaver helps all of this as well. The new Essence Reaver. So it's, yes, Jin sounds strong, and yes, burst ADCs will be stronger, but also the old hypercarry ADCs are going to be burst assassins now. Because they get this crazy boost to their already strong damage. They basically get all of those things that took them forever to build right away. And on top of that, they're still hyper carry. So they have just as strong as an early game and just as strong as a burst as the actual burst ADCs, but they also have a better later game. So it seems to me like there's two ways this is going to go. Either those burst ADCs that these changes were designed to help are going to be helped so much that they can finally match those old hypercarry ADCs that are all over the meta right now, or B, it's going to help the sustained damage hypercarry ADCs more than the burst ADCs, even though the changes weren't directed at them, and they're going to end up stronger anyway, and we're going to have the exact same meta, but with different strengths. So that's what I'm worried about, because you can test all this on the PvE, and there were already a couple of red flags on the PvE, but it's hard to see how things are going to react because the PvE is such a small amount of players compared to the live servers. So it's hard to like catch that kind of thing coming, or catch it before it comes, rather. So it feels to me like we're kind of just like sitting here nervously, like waiting to just like see what blows up, you know? And it just seems like ADCs are always extremely volatile. It always seems like they're dynamite and one thing could set one off. Like one ADC is, there's always one ADC that's half a step away from being completely busted, no matter what meta you're in. And I feel like we're going to find several cases of that with these big changes, but we're going to have to wait until they blow up. You know what I mean? Right. So I'm super apprehensive, really cautious about the whole thing. I feel similarly to this how I felt about the jungle changes last patch. So.
Well, at least with this, you know, there's at least 2 weeks before LCS starts, so that
we got a little time to figure
hopefully, if something's too crazy, that things get nerfed before that point hits. But I mean, you just talking about Twitch maybe shiver a little bit.
Yeah, and it's like that's
a tear. That's
Uzi is just love and life.
Exactly.
Yeah, it's all about
not as much a tear in LCS, but like for solo queue, I mean, people don't ward. People don't pay attention to stealth champions. That's why Evelynn is prevalent. I mean, that's why she's a good jungler. So if you have Twitch coming in and, you know, opens up exactly how you described it.
Yeah, his first 3 attacks are nukes. Yeah.
It's going to be poor. And I mean, he could be played ADC, could be played jungle again. I mean, people do like jungle Twitch. I would not. I despise it.
Yeah.
But I mean, it's just a horror for, you know, teams that are just separated, which happens so frequently in solo queue.
So get this one as well. I mentioned the new Essence Reaver. I just want to clarify what is happening to that one. The Essence Reaver is getting turned into, instead of crit strikes, boosting your or giving you back mana, it's every basic attack gives you 1% of your missing mana. It no longer has crit chance or CDR, I believe. I think it's attack speed AD. I'm not sure what the stats are, to be honest with you. But the big part of it, the big change is it has a new passive where when you hit your ultimate, your first attack after hitting your ultimate triggers the Essence Reaver like steroid, where it makes you deal it gives you like a big boost to attack speed for 8 seconds, I believe. It's like a steroid that lasts 8 seconds, and every single attack that you land in those 8 seconds reduces all of your cooldowns by 20%.
Wow, yeah.
So now imagine Twitch coming out of stealth, hitting ultimate, first attack guaranteed crit with true damage, 2 more attacks coming in extremely quick because both Hail of Blades that gives you the 100% attack speed, it also lets you go over the attack speed cap, and then you have another attack speed boost on top of that from hitting your ult with Essence Reaver. So it's just like he comes out of stealth and you get nuked. So Twitch is an assassin, and that it's not just him. Like I said, Kog'Maw this would be great on because you can just lead the fight with an ult, and then he activates his W, and then bam, 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 and then you just get nuked again by him. So it's gonna turn some of those sustained attack speed ADCs into having these massive bursts when they start fights, and then they still have that sustained damage even after. Yeah, it's terrifying to think about, honestly. I think in my head, the only thing that could combat that is if those actual burst ADCs, if they are helped so much that they can deal with that. But I don't see that happening. I don't know. Like I said, I'm really apprehensive. But let's move on. We've rambled enough. let's talk about real quick the Bilgewater event that's coming out this patch. They released a teaser trailer for it today, when the day of recording. So you'll be hearing this. So it would have come out yesterday for you. Murder Bridge is back. I don't think it's called Murder Bridge anymore. I think it's called.
That's the new name of the ARAM map. It's going to be called Murder Bridge now.
Is it still Murder? Because it used to be Murder Bridge. Yeah, I think it's something else.
Was it Murder Bridge? No, it's definitely. Let me. I'll get on that.
It's something else now.
It's
something.
For the name of this.
Joe's gonna look it up while I'm talking a little bit. But basically, it's turning the ARAM map
it's
into
Butcher's Bridge.
Butcher's Bridge, thank you. So basically, it's turning the Howling Abyss. It's replacing Howling Abyss with this Bilgewater pirate themed ARAM map,
which looks
the
awesome.
Turrets are cannons. It looks sweet.
Oh, yeah.
I like it more than Howling Abyss.
I do too.
Cool.
It looks so much
cool
more
map.
different than what they've done with other maps. It's just I like it a lot.
And I mean, they make Mark so much more fun, because instead of just throwing a snowball at somebody and instantly transporting over there, you throw an orange at them, and then you become a boat, and that's awesome. Yeah. You become a boat in your travel time, and it's just
absolutely
the whole aesthetic of it. I really enjoyed it when it was the last Bilgewater event, and the sounds of the cannons firing.
Back when Gangplank was killed off and then resurrected. Good times. So. Yes, the Bilgewater event is sweet. Yes, Butcher's Bridge is sweet. Very cool stuff. But there's something happening on the backside, back in the shadows, if you will, of this event. And for starters, Riot is pushing a lot of permanent and rather large changes to ARAMs, and they're also using the event to test other changes. And if it works out, they're probably going to stick around after the event ends. But tentatively, for now, they are scheduled to go away, if you will, when the event does end. But there is a chance, if the testing is deemed successful, that they'll stay. So I believe they're all in the PBE right now. I'm
looking at Surrender. Yeah, they seem to all be things like Spectral Cutlass.
Good old Moobeat.
Bloodletter's Veil. Joe, you play a lot of ARAM. What do you feel about this?
Right. I was about to say, if Zing is the competitive expert, I shall be the ARAM expert. I mean, some of the changes, like the permanent changes that they're making right now, they're all right. I mean, it's base gates so that your team isn't buying immediately and running out into the bush to die instantly because the rest of your team's not there, because people go AFK for the first, 30 seconds or something. They don't want to buy and run. So, that's going to cut down on that a little bit. A big thing actually is instead of starting the game with 0 experience, you start with 662 experience, because
level 2.
when you would start the game, well, no, it's equivalent for level 3.
Got it, because you get to level those abilities.
Right, because at the start
you already get to, but
it catches you up.
Yeah, at the start of every ARAM game, you get 3 points to level up, and then you take like 5 minutes to get to level 4. It is an incredible climb to go bridge that gap.
Because it's essentially you have to make up the experience.
Yeah,
right.
Because
you have to get the experience to go from level 1 to 2 to 3, and then you can finally work on 4.
So it may be more explosive fights kind of early, and then surrender times getting moved up. So, I mean...
So like 8 minutes, right?
Yeah,
crazy.
8 minutes is what it is. Maps typically get decided quicker, so it kind of makes sense for that. But more importantly... also, the other 2 things that are permanent are, if somebody rerolls your favorite champion, I'm sitting there. Somebody rerolls Sona or Varus, or one of the most strongest champions in ARAM. They're on what's called the bench, and so you can kind of grab those champions if somebody just re-rolled it away because people don't like to talk at all. So that's really nice, and also it's just easier to earn an S because it was almost impossible to earn an S in ARAM.
Oh yeah, good point.
Unless you just went absolutely, Uzi levels, you would never get an S in the game. Maybe, who knows?
I hope so.
But really, the 2 biggest changes for the temp ones that are going to be most important are Dark Harvest and Warmog's Armor. Dark Harvest is completely broken in ARAM. I mean, you're around minions constantly. I was playing today, and you have Nidalee taking Dark Harvest. You just have Sona taking Dark Harvest. You have literally almost anybody taking Dark Harvest.
Yeah, because they all get the stack when the cannon minion dies.
Yeah, because you're always around these minions.
Yeah.
So reducing that is going to be big, and hopefully that'll become like a permanent change, because Dark Harvest is just incredibly OP right now, and alongside that, Warmog's armor is another.
So stupid.
This is my favorite.
Incredibly strong. Yeah, it's incredibly strong. Because I mean, you're not allowed to heal anywhere else basically, except for like the little heal.
So if you're a tank that gets enough health to trip the Warmog's passive, you can basically get around the rule that says you can't go back to base.
Right. Or if you're Soraka, that too.
Yeah. Well.
But I mean, like, yeah, it just it doesn't matter if you, because ARAM, a lot of short skirmishes leading into big team fights. So when you have those short skirmishes, a lot of people, almost everybody, is down a little bit of health, and you struggle, and then when you get to the team fight, it's a lot more even. But whenever somebody has Warmogs, it's not even. They're back up to full health by the next time you guys skirmish. So you're kind of pressured into just constantly damaging them, which isn't always possible if you have like 5 melee champions on your team. So it'll be good to just kind of see what removing that item does for the game.
Yeah.
It should lead to more, in a sense, fair fights. Just not, Garens that immediately regain all their health.
I like the assassin items also. There were what, three of them that were added?
Yes, there's 3 of them. It's like boots that make you basically cane.
The cane boots.
Yep.
They're calling them ghost walkers, but everyone's gonna call them the cane boots.
They're cane boots. Yeah.
And then you have almost echo alt for ADs.
Yep. And
then you have like, what I really like is the proactive Banshee's Veil. So I like calling it a proactive Banshee's Veil because, it's especially in ARAM when a lot of it is poke. If you're up against a team with a lot of poke and you yourself have a lot of poke, your Banshee's Veil gets popped almost immediately before you go into the fight.
Yeah.
So with a proactive Banshee's Veil, where you're gonna like judge when to start basically having that veil, I think is really cool to have, because that lets you, go into a team fight and dodge any immediate CC that you may face.
And you just buy an Edge of Night and then stack them, and you get 2.
Yeah, I think it'll be something
for all
though
that so you can get out of Edge of Night.
Right. And I mean, obviously you want to stack an AP Magic Pen item with the AD Lethality item.
Yeah, obviously.
But I think hopefully, I mean, that seems like a cool item, and hopefully will stick around. I don't really have high hopes for the other 2, to be honest, especially the Ghost Walkers.
The Ghost Walkers I'm not a fan of, but I like the other one because I think it adds like this safety net to AD. It basically allows assassins to poke pokers.
Yeah.
They can get in and get out without having to flash or do anything crazy. And it gives them the ability to harass formerly unharassable champion. So I like that. I don't think it's a big change. I still think that ranged champions still have a huge advantage in ARAM despite that item. But it helps. It's no Warmog's removal, but it helps.
I think definitely with these items, what they're looking at is, enabling those melee champions, enabling assassins instead of just poke wins every time, because you can't heal back up. So, I mean, in a sense, with the Warmogs, taking away, that's, good for poke, because that poke remains permanent or more permanent. But with these, especially with, Spectral Cutlass and Bloodletter's Veil, those are really targeted towards those assassins that, definitely need help in ARAM. You never want to see your team with 5 melee champions usually, because then you're just like, well, we just sit under turret for the first 10, 15 minutes until we can actually engage.
Cross our fingers.
Until we can hopefully engage in the fight. So definitely welcome and exciting changes. I mean, ARAM doesn't get much love, almost ever. So hopefully,
that's the part that I'm most excited about. Like, ARAM deserves some love. I mean, League desperately needs a good, shorter game mode that doesn't directly compete with Summoner's Rift. And I think ARAM is it.
I want a rotating map queue where when you queue up for ARAMs, you are randomly thrown into either Butcher's Bridge or Howling Abyss.
That would actually that would definitely be great. Having a different map is cool, and I just don't want ARAM to go the way of Dominion,
because it's not like Summoner's Rift, where like if you change the map, you're like you have to adapt, and one player might be better at this map and whatever. It's just ARAM, so like, who cares? It's just for fun. Exactly. So just change the map, randomly throw us off our groove a little bit, keep it fresh.
Also, one last change that we actually didn't talk about. So they're instead of having the most recent week of free champions being in the pool, it's going to be the last 3 weeks, I believe.
Oh yeah, that's
so
right.
the last 3 free champion pools. So you have like 42 champions free. And so this is big for actually for 2 reasons, kind of. One, I mean, that's just going to help new players. If they want to play new champs, they're going to be playing on ARAM because they're going to have a lot more, to play. They'll have more fun.
Yeah.
The other thing that you guys might know about is this actually hurts like ARAM specific accounts, which, who would make an ARAM specific account? Those crazy people are out there. So with having
it exists,
they have, that means they only have champions unlocked that are like really good in ARAM, like Sona, Varus, Kog'Maw, stuff like that.
Yeah.
So widening the pool just hampers them, and you kind of just made that extra account for nothing. So that's actually something that's really fun to see because, I may be stuck with like York. No offense to York mains, but I don't want to play.
I don't think they're offended that he's bad at ARAM.
I may be stuck with York. Meanwhile, they have Soda, Varus, and Kog'Maw, which is just gonna tear through you. So I think that's actually
Sona. Don't mess.
I hate Sona.
I love
ARAM.
Sona.
I hate it so much in
Zing
ARAM.
likes the things that piss people off.
When they did
that's what you need to
all
learn
for
about
one,
Zing.
I had a game full of Sonas, and it was glorious.
Oh, is glorious the word?
It's just healing each other and
or is irritating beyond belief.
Definitely irritating.
The chords just going one
it's
after another, rapid fire.
It's all about your approach, how you think about it. Before we talk about Clash, I know we're going to get to it. I know it's the hot topic, but first I do want to talk briefly about Azir and Ryze. We've talked about them more than I think any other champion on this podcast, just because they're always being worked on. So they each had a rework on the PvE for a couple of months, since I think week 7 of the LCS. A couple of weeks ago, or last week maybe, a little before last week, those reworks were finally pulled from the PvE. They were gone, which wasn't weird at first because they had been pulled and then reintroduced on the PvE with like a little tweak here and there several times. So it's like, all right, they'll come back. But then Medler, Riot's lead gameplay designer, I think that's still his title, posts on the forums that they're kaput. Riot is pulling both reworks until further notice. And they're going to work on stuff that's more important. I don't care. that's what I'm indifferent to, because I like where Ryze and Azir are at. I like where Galio's at. He has a similar set of problems to these two. They're good in pro play, but without being too good. And they're still really bad in solo queue. And I think that's fine. I think that's a great play. I mean, I think that's a great place for them to be. I think that out of 140 whatever champions, that there is room to have 2 or 3 champions that are best utilized by players at the top level of gameplay, and that are inaccessible to the rest of the play. I mean, it's something to work for, and if you don't have the insane League of Legends mechanics to make these guys work, if you don't have the most coordinated team in the entire universe of solo queue to make them work, there's 137 other champions to choose from. That's how I feel. I think that with how many options we have now, there is room to have 3 champions like that, and I don't think they need reworked again. So I don't really think that they need to come back. What do you guys think?
I agree 100%. And what I would liken this to is the 3-point line in the NBA, right? Nobody in pickup is shooting. You don't play with the NBA 3-point line. That is something that is there for the professionals. It's okay to shoot from the high school line, which most pickup games do, right? So it's okay to have one set of rules that you see that make sense on the professional stage, and another set of rules or play styles that everyone else uses around the world. And I think these two are the same. Like, there are players that use Ryze and Azir. Maybe they love them. Maybe they're good at them. I mean, they can still play them in solo queue, but if you really want to see these 2 champions played at their best, it'll be in the LCS or the LCK or on the professional stage. Or
at the very tippy top of challenge.
Right.
Like, those are the players that can use them, and I think that that's fine, because when they do know how to use them, it's not like they're OP, they're just good enough to be played, and I think that's where they're at, and I think that's a good enough spot to be. I think, honestly, they're in their best position that they've been in 2 years.
I agree.
So I don't want the reworks to come back, and if they do, I hope it's at the end of the year so we can get a whole split where they feel balanced at pro play. I think honestly, without sacrificing both of their kits entirely, I think that's just how it's. They're always going to be doomed to be great pro, bad solo queue amateur, and I just think that's fine. So I don't care that the reworks were pulled. If anything, I'm a little relieved because it's always stressful to see. All right, there's another frickin' Rise we were coming in this patch. So it's good that I don't have to worry about that for a while.
The last thing I'll say is, like, reworks aren't free. There's an opportunity cost to Rise getting reworked 5, 6, 7, a dozen times, right? Someone else isn't getting work, or a new champion isn't, getting the time and attention. Riot doesn't have infinite resources. I know they're a billion-dollar company, but there's an opportunity cost to this stuff, and I agree. Like, I think it's fine, and I don't think they should continue worrying about this when there are other things to fix.
Like Clash. Speaking of Clash, we can finally talk about it. So, for those of you that don't know, and I do not assume that there are many of you who don't know because it was a big deal last week, Clash, the in-game tournament feature, it allows you to form a pre-made group of friends or strangers, form an official team with a name, with a roster. You can trade players, you can scout other enemy team rosters. And you enter, it throws you into tournaments of similar skill levels where they last the weekend. You can win cool prizes for in-game. There's a cost to them because you have to buy a ticket to buy into them. Everyone was super excited, and they should have been, because this, honestly, in my opinion, the most exciting League of Legends feature in the last few years. It was super hyped. They did the full reveal in the springtime, and then they were like, all right, it's coming out in May. And we're like, oh my God, it was just revealed 2 months ago. This is great. We're going to get to play it already. And last weekend was opening weekend. And do either of you guys want to walk our audience through what happened on Clash's opening weekend?
Go ahead, Joe.
Well, it was just a slow decline into just disappointment, I think.
Decline.
What you saw during the day was just, hey, it's canceled in this region. Sorry about that. Hey, it's canceled in this region. Sorry about that. Meanwhile, in North America, everybody's just like, please, God, please fix this.
Please,
I want to play Clash.
Fix it by tonight.
And then it gets to the point where they're like, it's canceled in North America too. It's just, it was incredibly disappointing. I mean, at first, they originally thought it was just going to be the day. I mean, there were hopes that
because even in the regions that already canceled, it was just like, all right, just the Friday games are canceled.
And they were talking about, hey, we're going to run like bigger
tournaments. Tomorrow will be good
on the Saturday and Sunday. And then I didn't actually even know that all the days were canceled until I actually logged on, because I play on EU West a little bit. I logged on to EU West and I saw Clash is just canceled for the weekend. I'm like, wait, the whole weekend? I thought it was just the first day. So I mean, obviously I don't think anybody's happy.
There's memes and insults flying everywhere in Riot's direction.
Unfortunately, almost at this point, it seemed inevitable that it was going to happen and that people were going to get let down.
I mean, 2 months, like, if it wasn't rushed, they, like, because it was there was two things, because we heard about it in, March, and then in May it was launched, maybe February we heard about it, doesn't matter. So there were two things in my mind, because with a full release 2 months after, or 2 or 3 months after the reveal, it's either A, going to be rushed, or B, they hit a lot of the development from the community. Both things are bad. It turns out it was rushed. So the issue, for those of you that don't know, you might just be flaming that you didn't get to play and you didn't look into it or anything, and that's fine. We're often blind with rage with League of Legends sometimes. For those of you that don't know, so the games in the first 2 servers where it started, and I believe one of them was the Philippines. What was happening was the first games failed to start, and then the client randomly dished out results. Like, they randomly assigned a winner and loser. And when there's a stake involved, there's prizes on the line, you had to buy into the tournament. That's obviously very bad. And to make matters worse, at the end of the weekend, they were like, all right, the weekend's canceled. And then the next day, they're like, here's what's happening. So they think, right, believes that they have identified what exactly the problem is. So they're trying to correct it. They've figured out what messed up, not just the symptom, but like what caused the symptom. Bad news, though. They don't know how long it's going to take because it's a big deal. And when it is finally fixed, there's going to be several rounds of beta testing before we ever see it go live again.
Kind of like it should have been that way to start.
They don't have an estimate on when it's coming back, but it sounds like it's going to be a while. We're looking at a couple months earliest. At the earliest, it's going to be a couple months. That's what I'm thinking. So that sucks.
Yeah, like in my eyes,
that sucks.
Almost the worst thing about this, I feel, is just like, you know, obviously it's disappointing not to play Clash, but imagine if it was just like delayed a little bit longer. That I mean, like this coming out so early and it like failing completely. It might be just the biggest hype killer for it. And, you know, when it actually launches, it might actually be as fun as people thought it was going to be, but nobody might play it because, you know, all the hype was killed early on.
Yeah.
This is going to be like a terrible kind of out there comparison.
Sucks.
But, you know, think of like No Man's Sky. When No Man's Sky came out, everybody was so disappointed in it because it was rushed. It was released early because they wanted to capitalize on all the hype that was building up. Yeah. Now, from what I hear from a lot of people is that No Man's Sky is like a really good game. Like they've done everything they were talking about where they were going to do, and they've implemented like multiplayer and stuff, but nobody's playing it because it got released way too soon and all the hype died. So I hope that doesn't happen with Clash, though I could see it happening with Clash because, you know, all the hype was building up. Everybody was so excited to play, comes out total failure because nobody is actually able to play it. And then when it gets released, you know, however many months down the line, it just, people might not care.
So I will say that there are differences here to keep into account. Like for starters, Riot's marketing team is way better at building hype than No Man's Sky's marketing team. And B, it took, from what I know about No Man's Sky, a couple years to get to that point. Right. And this is probably just going to be a few months. So I don't think it'll end up that way. Definitely a concern.
Pretty big comparison. Pretty out there.
Definitely a concern. But here's something I want to mention, and you can call me a shill or a fanboy or whatever, but we're here because we like League of Legends. We love League of Legends. Right. We played it forever, blah, blah, blah. And I think it's worth mentioning that Riot Games is full of people that like League of Legends. So from what I can tell, yes, it was rushed, but the intentions were good. It was just a group of people that came up with this feature, were incredibly excited that it got the green light. They designed it. As soon as it looked like it works, they're like, we got to get this out there. It's so awesome. And they were just incredibly proud of it. And frankly, they should have been because it's a great idea. And I would put my entire savings account in a bet that they are absolutely devastated that this issue came up. And I'm sure they feel crushed. And they're people that like League of Legends. That's just the message I'm trying to take. So don't flame them too much. Like, realistically, I think if they hadn't put it out in May and they had found this issue, it would have taken about half a year to fully come out anyway. So it just seems worse because we were given a taste, I think, like halfway through. But I don't know. I'm not too beat up about it. I'm a little bummed, but I'm sure the good folks at Riot Games are taking it much harder than any of us are. So I'm sure they'll get back on the horse and we'll finally see Clash again in working order in a few months. Let's move on to the segment that we haven't done in a couple weeks called What's OP. Typically we dive into a lot of PvE stuff, but there was just so much stuff that's like already coming out that we decided not to do a PvE section. Instead, we're just going to do What's OP. And we are going to talk about one thing. And that one thing is Tarek and Master Yi. God, I hate League of Legends.
I will say...
oh, man, I love League of Legends.
Why do you guys...
I hate this game.
Dedicated fans...
That's my relationship with League of Legends.
For the dedicated fans of the Recall podcast, we talked about this with Spy's top laner Odo Omne, I think in episode 12.
With a slight difference.
It was Kale Yi. But it's the same concept.
It's the same premise.
If Master Yi can be invincible, hey, he can actually carry late games. And this is like in the era of early game junglers fighting for scuttle control, where Yi's like a farm till 6, farm till late champion, and has no scuttle control. I mean, this is super OP. You basically face roll the game, you push all your buttons, and then Tarek drops an invulnerability on you, steps inside, and you murder everyone.
Yep. So for those of you that don't know, like we mentioned that it's extremely annoying. This was a strategy that was popularized in China, in the Chinese Garena regions, and it is making its rounds to North America and elsewhere. Essentially, it's exactly what Zing said. Tarek does everything in his power as a mid laner. Yes, mid lane Tarek. By the end of this, hopefully he'll be as mad as I am. But yeah, mid lane Tarek basically sacrifices all of his time and resources into getting Yi ahead. So what Tarek does is he runs ridiculously defensive runes that I hate, like Bone Plating and Grasp of the Undying occasionally. I've seen some run Press the Attack, which is weird. But the big ones are like Revitalize for the heal shield boost, Bone Plating for the damage reduction, and then you get like either a Relic Shield to heal Yi and to get yourself a heal whenever he rolls through lane, or a Doran Shield I've seen a couple times, which obviously is dumb for defensive starts. And this combination of defensive capability from rune and early items allows Tarek to not farm, just freeze his lane while at the same time surviving punishment from his lane opponent. And what he'll do is he will just hold the minions in front of his tower before they get under tower range. Master Yi will blow through the lane, Alpha Strike, clear the wave, and keep on walking. So basically every few minutes, Yi gets an entire wave of golden experience. Tarek gets literally nothing, but Tarek doesn't need anything to have a heal, shield, and ultimate late in the game.
He just needs the ult,
He just needs the ult where Yi needs the resources.
Don't a lot of them take smite too to help him with the scuttle?
Yeah, that was the other thing. You were right. They also run smite because basically what they'll do is Yi will come through the lane, they'll clear the wave that Tarek's been freezing, and then they will move together onto whatever Scuttle Crab spawns because they give incredible amounts of gold now. Tarek will use his smite to help Yi secure it. And essentially Tarek is getting nothing out of this except he's
except a win.
Super steroid. Except a win, yeah. He's a super steroid for Master Yi. And Master Yi's early game, he's a duelist, which is in meta right now because the duelists that hover around the scuttles and fight one another in the jungle, very powerful. But Yi, unlike most of those duelists, has a weaker early game.
Right.
With Tarek literally giving him the entire world on a silver platter, that is no longer an issue. So yeah, it works way too well, and I hate it. I hate it so much. So what do you guys think of it?
Well, I was just going to say the good thing is, for people lower in solo queue, as long as it's solo queue, mid laner's not going to sacrifice everything because people are selfish. So that's what you're going to have to hope on, is that people are just selfish and that it doesn't allow. But as for, Zing can talk about, his thoughts on the whole style.
Obviously, it's going to get nerfed, right? Like they're probably going to nerf Yi instead of Tarek. So don't worry too much about this becoming like the new LCS meta. I think it's kind of fun. Like I'm all for like some wacky things popping up every now and then.
Hey, let's not listen to Zing's points. Listen,
people take this video game way too seriously sometimes. Listen, it's calm down. It's gonna get nerfed. While it's not nerfed, just have a little fun with it. If you have 5 bans for a reason, right? Like I don't think that this is too broken of a thing to make League unfun.
Listen to me, Zing. You take your rational thought and you get the heck out of here. I don't want to hear it. But you're right. It'll probably get nerfed. Yi will probably get nerfed instead of Tarek because Tarek isn't in a particularly powerful position right now.
No.
As far as supports go. Whereas, I mean, it's a clear buff for Yi, but I don't know. I think the only reason it's possible isn't because Yi is Yi. I think the only reason it's possible is because Tarek can get away with surviving lane.
Right.
Without farming or anything. I think it's the runes. I do not like where the runes are at right now. I think there's a lot of illusion of choice. And I think a lot of the defensive runes need to be looked at. Sorry to get real here after just joking around for like 4 solid minutes. But I mean, this issue isn't just mid lane Taric. He's just the symptom of a larger problem.
No.
The biggest symptom is, in my opinion, fleet footwork, which is it gives the exact same thing but to ADCs. They run Doran's shield, they run fleet footwork, and they can take resolve secondary rune path, and they can do whatever they want in lane. They'll survive everything, and they just wait until they get their third item. They hit the on switch, and they carry the game. And that's a problem. There's no, like, the engagement is extremely limited, and it's always one-sided. And I have something to say about fleet footwork in general. Why is it in the game?
That's a great question.
Because look at resolve, domination, precision, and sorcery, and inspiration. Each one of these rune paths, all of the keystone runes and all of the minor runes, are designed with the overarching theme of the rune path.
Right.
The theme of domination is burst damage. The theme of resolve is tankiness. The theme of inspiration is changing the rules of the game. The theme of sorcery is poke damage. What's the theme of precision?
Go fast.
It's
Attack
sustained damage. How does fleet footwork help sustain damage?
Well, the other thing is precision is about knowing when and how cooldowns and interact. But when ADCs take footwork, they're not really waiting for the proc. They just auto as much as possible, and they automatically get it.
Yeah.
Well, it's at the end of the day. I mean, it's sustained damage. You have press the attack, which turns on a couple auto attacks into your fight. You get the boost. It's for the champion that is in the fight long enough to proc them, basically. Mm-hmm. Same goes for lethal tempo. Same goes for Conqueror, but that's better for melee champions. But with the same goal in mind.
Yeah.
Where does fleet footwork fit in?
I agree.
No, it's
a great
point to bring up.
Doesn't fit
thematically.
And where would it go?
I don't think it should go anywhere.
Literally doesn't fit in any rune path.
No, it doesn't.
It's just there to satiate the people that miss. What was it? Warlord's Bloodlust.
Yeah, which was a dumb rune.
It's the exact. I mean, it's the same. It gives you a heal. It gives you a movement speed boost. It's this lame survivability mechanic where you can just turn off your brain and farm for 10 minutes.
But I mean, it could be really good if they just get rid of the heal, even.
Yeah, but I mean, even then, it still doesn't that would be better for sorcery, I think, if it was just a speed boost. But then you're encroaching on phase rush.
Yeah, that's true. That's true.
And it's like there are better. You have 3 runes that perfectly fit into precision. You Conqueror, lethal tempo, although lethal tempo needs some help, and press the attack, which all fit perfectly thematically into precision. And then you have fleet footwork, which literally just doesn't match at all.
Yeah.
And it just feels like it's there to make people happy, when if it wasn't even in the game, things would be a lot healthier. That's the largest symptom of the defensive rune problem, in my opinion. I think shortly behind that is the power of the minor runes in the resolve tree. Mm-hmm. But fleet footwork, I think, takes the cake, and I would like to see it removed personally. I know some people are like Skara's like, just get rid of runes, do all your balancing around champions. I get where he's coming from, and he has the same, he's trying to solve the same problem that I just identified. It's the exact same problem. I just wouldn't go about solving it. I think that League is only interesting because the balance changes aren't really balance changes. They're really updates. Keep the game fresh. And I think if Riot knows that. They know that the updates are what keeps the game exciting. They don't push changes to fix problems. 80% of the time, changes are pushed to keep things interesting. And having the whole rune system and the freedom of choice in the rune system just adds more possibility to keep things interesting. So I don't think runes need to go away. I just think I think the defensive runes right now, they take away so much from that rewarding for really talented mechanical skill and really talented game knowledge, which are the 2 big aspects of gameplay. They take away from it because they basically give you a safety net.
I mean, one way you could accomplish this, and I haven't thought this through, I'm spitballing, is just take away secondary runes.
Yeah, because then you still have
you just go all in on what your primary path is.
Yeah, you still have power for what playstyle you want. Like tanks can still run defensive runes then, but if a ADC vouches for defensive runes, they're going to lack a lot of damage.
Right.
So yeah, that might
There's ways you can play around it.
That's a good answer. Yeah. And I think that's an option to explore. But something has to be done because that's in my opinion, that's the biggest issue that League's facing. It's not the solo queue, or it's not the solo carry potential. I think that's fine right now. It's that there's no excitement anymore. And I'm not saying like, oh, I'm bored with the game. I'm saying that there's a reason that I'm bored with the game. And the reason that I'm bored is that every game feels the same now. There's champions that sit in lane and farm, and those champions, when they get their on switches, carry the game. And that is how every single game plays out. And by enabling that passive playstyle, you get rid of, like I said, rewarding players for high mechanical skill and game knowledge. And it just makes every game kind of bleed into one another. And it might just be because I've been playing for so long. But normally I'm one of those people that no matter how long I've played League, I can find the game fun and I still love it. And I still find the game fun and I still love it. And I try to attack this from different angles and I try to think about it in different ways, but I just keep coming back to that same like feeling in my gut, you know? So that's my little rant about defensive runes. Let's move on to esports. Yay! There isn't a lot going on in the world of esports right now because MSI wrapped up last weekend. We talked about before who we thought would win the finals, et cetera, et cetera. RNG won. They looked really, really good. Uzi looked really, really good. They have potential to be the best team in the world. They definitely made a strong case for themselves for that claim.
I think
but
they definitely are.
Well, hold on, because it's hard to. Where I agree at this exact point in time, they're the best team in the world. It's hard to give them the title after what happened at Worlds.
Sure.
Because it was Longzhu going into Worlds. Yeah. It was Samsung after Worlds. It was Longzhu again, and then it's RNG, and it could change in a month.
You want to see them defend?
I want to see him defend. Yeah, exactly.
So here's my one question for you. I know we don't have too much time for it, but before MSI, you asked me if Longzhu or Kingzone lost, would I be concerned about the projected path of that team? So I'm going to ask you the same. I'm going to ask you the same thing. What do you feel about this team going into summer and potentially Worlds later in the year?
RNG or Longzhu?
Kingzone.
Or sorry, Kingzone. Right. Damn, I get them mixed up.
They did lose.
Yes, I am concerned. And because I'm hopeful. Because where I do think that the issues they displayed against RNG in the finals were the same issues that they had at Worlds, they weren't as extreme. So it seemed like they worked on it, and that's a good sign. But the issues are still very much there, and the issue is, in my opinion, the inability to handle that sort of pressure. They have inexperience there because every player on that team has had a very long career in League of Legends, but they've never gotten to that point. And yes, I was worried they choked at Worlds because of that inexperience, and then when they got there at MSI, they choked again. Yes, RNG looked incredible. Yes, Uzi looked incredible, but Longzhu also played bad. Like they played that one game pretty well, and they didn't play well. Like they just didn't. And a lot of that's got to be mental. But like I said, it does appear that they are working on it because they look better.
Yeah. The one thing I would say about it is I feel like, and again, this gets back to the point that of all the titles that the LCK region has won, almost all of them are due to one team and one player. It's Faker and SKT. And
all of them are due to two teams.
Right. But like the majority is still SKT, right? Because the Samsung.
Well, it's like
Samsung was two completely different iterations.
Yeah.
Yeah, but it was still like still like the same organization putting together a team. Right. Like they knew how to throw a team together. I think player management is going to play a much larger role in the near future for League of Legends than it has.
Right.
It's played a huge role in Korea because SKT and Samsung knew how to do it, and that's why they kept pulling in new players, new rosters, and they were still succeeding more than any other team in the world. And that's why I always say, yes, you can say the LCK is scary, and yes, the LCK has won 5 of the last 7 international titles, but wait, seven international titles, including MSI and Worlds. Is that right? I think it is. All of them went to 2 organizations, SKT and Samsung. So is it that LCK is better than the rest of the world? Or is it that those 2 teams were better than the rest of the world?
And the one thing that one point about that was going to be, we were incredibly spoiled in Season 3 when Faker came out in his rookie year and won Worlds in the convincing manner that he did, right?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, absolutely.
Like, that set the expectation for how LCK teams should behave in all these tournaments. And that has not been matched by anyone. It hasn't been matched by Samsung. It hasn't been matched by Longzhu Kingzone. It hasn't been matched by RNG, right? So the Samsung team that won last year, like, they went through a lot of heartbreak to get to where they were. The Samsung White team that won in 2014 even went through a terrible Worlds the year before when they just acquired the team. And so the one thing that I would say to Kingzone fans that are disappointed, and I saw there's a lot of flame about Prey, GorillaCon, everyone, is be patient, because we've really seen them now. This is just their 4th kind of best of 5 in a clutch scenario. They've only played 4. 2 of those were the LCK championships, and this is a quirk of how the LCK works, where via seeding they were placed right in the championship round. So we've only seen them play 4 best of 5s. They've won 2 and lost 2. And so I would say that obviously they've had a ton of mistakes, and we can talk about those another time, but have a little patience, because there's only been 1 team and 1 player that's come out and won and had immediate success, and that's Faker and SKT.
Yeah, and like I said, it seems like they're working up to it. So like I'm worried that could be a long-term issue, and they'll still be working on it when Worlds rolls around.
Which would be okay. I mean, if they're still
I mean, that's
showing
fine.
growth.
Yeah, because they're as long as they're showing growth. The thing is though, RNG isn't like SKT was, and this is why I think that RNG, out of any team in the world, has the capacity to really form another SKT dynasty, except for themselves. And the reason is that RNG has been slowly grinding up to this point forever.
Yeah,
exactly.
They've been improving and improving. They've been to Worlds and to Worlds and to Worlds. They've been slowly climbing up until they reached peak. And when they hit peak, they won MSI. And they might not even be at peak, but just at the best that we've seen them before. So they know how to keep steadily improving, and if they can keep steadily improving, or even just holding on to where they are now, I don't see anyone toppling them unless they choke under the pressure of being in that position, which is possible. It happens in sports. But as of right now, I think the biggest. I mean, yes, Longzhu or Kingzone has issues. But what I'm thinking is, even if they figure those issues out, I don't know that they'd be able to beat RNG. In fact, I'd still bet on RNG in that scenario. So, yeah. So that's my long answer.
Like you were talking, Zing, earlier about just the dominance that Korea came out with in Season 3. The only player outside of Korea that has even come close to matching, especially like Faker's individual level, is Uzi. I mean, this guy has been to multiple finals almost on his own accord, because he just carries his team through those years. So, I mean, you always kind of thought that he was going to get to that point of winning a title just because of how dominant he's been for so many years. He's been insane. And though, I mean, RNG obviously did play fantastic, I don't know if I would take them to win Worlds. I mean, yeah, they look great right now, but if Longzhu do fix their problems, and if Longzhu can dominate Worlds, Kingzone, Jesus, Aaron, it's your fault.
It is Aaron's fault.
It completely.
Mostly usually is.
If they could get, if they get to Worlds like in a similar form to how they played in spring in LCK, and that's just completely dominant, I think Kingzone is a team where if they play at their peak, nobody beats them. Just because of how insane
the issue is getting them to their peak at that stage, though. And RNG, on the other hand, is reliable.
Right.
Uzi played really well, but they were a multi.
They're reliable at this year. I mean, they were reliable at MSI this year. I mean, they've
been reliable.
But they've also played best of 5 after best of 5 after best of 5 after best of 5, and Kingzone just hasn't done that.
They've had incredible time to work on.
Oh yeah, but I mean, I think like especially with looking at this season, it's not like RNG completely dominated the LPL. Given that was a fact of they were experimenting a lot early in the season. They weren't playing Uzi all the time, so they got to that point where they did eventually come out to MSI. And, they did dominate about the second half of the main event and the final the playoff structure. But I mean, they didn't look incredibly strong that first half of the main event. That first game against Kingzone absolutely just crushed them out of the game, and RNG had no chance.
It seemed like it did take them time because they were known in the LPL to be that triple threat team. They were the mid jungle bot lane triple threat team, and it seemed like it took them a while for the mid and jungle points of that triangle to turn on. So the strategies started revolving around Uzi so he could solo carry,
and
miraculously he still did
beautifully in their
the meta. And then it wasn't until, in my opinion, it wasn't even until the finals that those other 2 points of the triangle did turn on. But when they did, they looked so good.
Yeah, it's the difference of MLXG versus MLXD. I mean, which one you're gonna get playing that day?
Well, at finals it was mostly Karsa, wasn't it?
Yeah, I can't remember exactly how many games.
I think he played the whole series.
I'm pretty sure it's Karsa.
So Karsa, that's great for him, obviously. First season in the LPL, but he's had almost as much international stage time as RNG.
Oh no,
he just usually gets knocked out earlier.
Yeah, but since Flash Wolves have been at every single international event,
it was Karsa all 4 games. He played Skarner all 4 games.
That's right. They just kept letting it go.
Karsa's definitely not lacking in experience on the international stage.
Uzi's Ezreal was unbelievable. Anyway, so at the end of the day, I'm excited to see both teams potentially compete at Worlds, and I don't think Kingzone fans should get too down on themselves. For this
absolutely. Because like I said, it still looks like they're improving. So I don't know. I would hold my head up. I would also hold my head up if you're an NA fan, as painful as that is to say, because I still think that Liquid, while they were knocked out 1 place away, just like TSM was last year, I still think Liquid looked better this year at MSI than TSM looked at Worlds. And TSM looked at MSI last year because Team Liquid started the event off with a lot of the same problems that TSM had at Worlds, but the difference was they turned it around.
Right.
And at the end of the group stage, it looked like they were able to get confidence back, which is something that North America has not been able to do. So if they can just hold on to that and focus a little more on coaching the psyches of these players, and they can improve that even a little more for Worlds, I can see at least a quarterfinals qualifier at Worlds. And if they make it that far, which I assume they would, because they still look like they're better than any team domestically by a long shot. So I would still hold my head up if I were an NA fan, because it was still an improvement. And that's all we can really ask for at this point. Because we have very large glaring issues to fix. And little improvements and significant improvements even are the best that we can ask of fixing such a massive problem. So I'm happy. I was happy with us at MSI because I was so disappointed when it started, because it was like, all right, I'm watching TSM again. And then it was like you saw that fire turn on, and it's like, all right, they know how to do it. They just need to figure out how to do it reliably. So we'll see. And let's move on to something else in the LCS. I just briefly want to mention this as the last thing of our episode this week, and that is the fact that the NALCS for the next, I want to say 4 years was the deal. The NALCS will be streaming on the ESPN Plus app, which is ESPN's streaming app. They stream all their channels and sports shows on there. I think it's $5 a month, and the LCS is going to be on there now. So That's significant, but it is worth mentioning because the reason I want to bring this up is because a video got kind of popular that Travis Gafford put out where he talked about how this meant the end of the BAMTech deal from a little over a year ago, where the MLB, Disney, and Riot were teaming up to make this exclusive streaming platform for the LCS. And Disney also owns ESPN. So this is essentially replacing that deal because it's a 4-year deal. So it seems, for all intents and purposes, that the BAMTech deal is off the table. So there isn't going to be a dedicated streaming app just for the LCS anymore. It's going to be on ESPN. So my question for you guys is, for this to take over the potential that deal had, and I think it's good because the BAMTech deal, we hadn't heard anything on it. So for all we know, it was getting nowhere, and I would rather see something than nothing, essentially. But the BAMTech deal offered something very special to the LCS. It offered a lot of exposure and a lot of dedicated screen time and the potential for a lot more content. What does the ESPN Plus offer the LCS that they didn't have already on Twitch and YouTube streams?
I think it's potential audience. I think it offers the exact same things. I mean, they're using the same technology that BAMTech put into their app to build ESPN Plus. That this is BAMTech. So I think it offers the exact same pluses, you know, in terms of content creation and curation that it potentially could have offered before. But now it expands that audience to just anyone that has the ESPN Plus subscription, which is going to be a significant portion of non-esports fans. I don't know if those fans will actually convert and we'll see the, you know, the unicorn of the crossover fan. But I think that this has much more potential than the BAMTech deal had.
What do you think, Joe?
So I think I'm probably not as on the hype train as you guys. I mean, what it seems like ESPN.
I don't, if I seem like I'm not on the hype train, I'm not.
Okay.
I'm very much asking your guys' opinions because I don't know how to feel on it.
Okay.
So yeah.
I think like with ESPN Plus right now, I mean, even in the sports world in general, and you know, traditional sports, it's the new platform. They're just launching it. They are throwing out money to get as much as they can, basically. You know, for example, like they're going to be streaming more MLS games. They have some exclusive deals with individual teams even. So I see this. I mean, yeah, it's as you guys have said, it's taken over a bit of the BAMTech deal, but it's also just, you know, ESPN Plus trying to capture something else. Though they're not capturing it because Twitch, it's still streaming on Twitch. And I don't feel people are going to be moving off Twitch to go to ESPN Plus, especially when ESPN Plus you have to pay for when Twitch is free. You know, yeah. So I don't see people converting. And then on the other side of it, I don't see people who have ESPN Plus necessarily converting to LCS because there's going to be a ton of other content for them on ESPN Plus with other leagues that they may enjoy. So I just think I don't think it's necessarily going to be a huge thing. I don't think it's going to be incredibly groundbreaking, and that ESPN Plus is going to be taking off because of LCS, and that LCS is going to get a lot bigger because of ESPN Plus.
So that's kind of where I'm at, but not as extreme. I think that's where I'm landing. I'm landing kind of in the camp that I don't see what the ESPN Plus app provides to the LCS. Right. I think that the BAMTech deal, the exclusivity behind it, was the primary factor. The fact that they had an app built specifically around the LCS would not only be easier to market than a Twitch or YouTube stream, but it would be way easier to sell sponsorships. It would be way easier to put out more content on, like those awesome, they do those Tuesday LCS streams where they find the best games from around the world and they put them on the LCS channel to watch on Tuesdays, and all those talk shows before and after games. You could do more stuff like that. Analysis like Jat Stats, the this or that with Jat and Kobe, even the podcast that they do. All of that could be on this app, and having all of those options in one place would open up so much for the LCS. And in my opinion, I'm where you're at. I think the ESPN Plus app does not offer any of those. The only thing that it could offer would be converting non-LCS fans to the LCS. And like Zing said, that's a unicorn. I don't know if that's going to happen reliably. We don't know. And I think that if that's really the only thing that it offers, I don't know. I'm not a huge fan. I'm apprehensive about it. It hasn't started yet, so I can't say definitively like this is good or this is bad.
Yeah.
But I'm definitely apprehensive.
I definitely feel that ESPN has greater potential to create that like kind of round the clock content for professional league than Riot does, just because I mean they're stretching their casters and their broadcast personnel so thin as it is. And I just never believed that the BAMTech
but
deal
then
could
that's
turn into
something
anything.
but then that turns into an asset for ESPN. I wanted something to benefit the LCS. I wanted those familiar faces, those rioters, all those things that they already do, and bigger sponsorships and everything to be in one place.
Right.
And for
so
this to be an
benefit
ESPN
Riot,
channel, for this to be an ESPN channel,
Right.
it's going to be ESPN personality. And they don't provide the same type of thing, like no offense to ESPN, but they don't provide that same feeling, that same relatability that Riot's and the LCS's own people can provide. Like I would say the same thing if it was a .esports like LCS streaming service. If it was our company, I don't think we could meet the same expectations that the people would have for Riot. I do not think we could. I don't think ESPN can. I don't think they ever have. And
well, not for esports, but they've done it for every other sport that they've invested
for esports.
in.
Yeah, but esports is I mean they've been running esports for a while, and it's still like
I would still
Riot
say it's
knows their game best. I don't know.
I think it's still early days for ESPN esports. I think that there's a lot of growth to be had. I mean, it depends on your view of how ESPN can grow esports. And I've just seen them grow so many other sports where they work in conjunction with the league, and they handle content so much better than the leagues. I mean, we're talking about old behemoths, so there's definitely potential that esports could be different, and I want to be careful about understanding the differences there. But they do have that experience of bridging that content gap that the leagues haven't traditionally provided, and Riot, I don't think has the capacity to provide on its own.
So real quickly, did they release? Okay, I can't remember. Did they release like the monetary value of the deal, like how much ESPN Plus paid for streaming?
I don't think so.
I
know.
No.
I think I know it's just like a 4-year deal. I imagine it was a pretty big. I imagine there's a pretty big dollar sign somewhere.
Because to kind of go off your point, Aaron, of the BAMTech having that exclusivity and being dedicated to League of Legends, like that's something that I think would be much better because it gets into the ESPN Plus gets into kind of the whole other thing again that's been becoming more prevalent in esports is that esports doesn't necessarily need traditional media, traditional
it's a separate
companies
it's a separate
thing. to like
where you can pull inspiration
massively.
I don't think it should ever mirror
because like before you would see like article in like the Daily Mail or the Guardian or something, and esports fans get all happy because esports is becoming legit, and that may some people may see that same thing with ESPN Plus, where it's like ESPN Plus is streaming all these traditional sports games, and they also got esports. That's so great for us, but it's like esports doesn't necessarily need that to be like on the same to have like, we're next to these traditional sports. That's so cool. I think the BAMTech deal would have been so much cooler for esports because
it just feels like we're settling.
Have that,
but
in a sense, and that's why I wondered about how much did they pay for it? Because I mean, if ESPN Plus really wants to get esports and they're paying a lot of money, then okay, that makes sense. Then they're realizing it more. But if it's more like, I don't know how Riot or LCS would have seen this. It's like, ESPN Plus is offering us some money to stream on their platform. Oh my God, we have to take that because it's ESPN. So that's why I'm kind of curious about that.
I do feel like people are taking some rose-colored glasses to what the potential of the BAMTech deal could have been, right? I mean, who on the BAMTech side is really going to drive?
You're right. You're right.
There's no one there. There's no one
there.
Well,
it wasn't going to be BAMTech running the con.
Right, and so
it was always going to be an app that Riot would use.
And so
to direct their own stuff.
But I feel like Riot has,
what I understand,
they've made a lot of good changes lately, but they've made a lot of missteps in their handling of their esports product as well. And the potential conflicts between being the publisher and also running the esports are also there as well. So I don't know.
Right.
I feel like there's this idea. I mean, I agree completely. Like, if you had a league-specific product that you could market standalone, that'd be the ideal. But I just see a lot of execution risk that some people may not be taking into consideration when they're thinking about how we get from point A to point B.
I'm somewhere in between you guys. We got a pro ESPN Plus and a not pro.
Not as
Plus.
much pro. Just yeah, I'm.
But I think I'm in between you guys because like where I agree with a lot of the points that Joe's bringing up. I'm also in the same camp as Zing, where like it's way too early to tell, and we don't know how ESPN is going to handle this. I think the ball's in their court largely,
Absolutely.
and they have a lot to prove. So we'll see. And I'm just going in it like I'm apprehensive. Like I said, is really how I feel. But I like to keep an open mind about all things esports and league. So I don't think that. I would like to give them the benefit of the doubt. So I would like to lean towards ESPN Plus as a pro in that camp, but I am still realistically apprehensive. So
yeah, and like the fact is, as much as we can make, assumptions about how it may be run or, make judgments on it, ESPN Plus itself is a brand new platform. Like they have just launched it, so we're not exactly sure all of what it's capable of and all of what they'll be doing. So
or even what the plans are, yeah.
So I've been like kind of negative on it and a bit wary, we don't know exactly how things are going to go, and I'm just always going to be very curious about how much they actually paid for.
So we'll keep an open mind.
Yeah. But the weird thing that we all have to I hope that we all agree on is, I still don't get that there's no exclusivity. Like, if they're paying this much
living
for
amongst other
non-exclusive
sports programs, yeah.
Well, no, not like Twitch. It's living alongside Twitch. They don't have exclusive streaming rights, that's the big thing in traditional sports is, we want the exclusive rights. We don't want anybody else with this product. So that's always been curious to me that, streaming platforms are content to be, you can watch it on Twitch or you can watch it here, because then that takes so much more work and differentiating.
That was probably a non-starter for Riot. And that was the case under the BAMTech deal as well. It's just Twitch and YouTube.
Yeah. It's just curious to me.
Well, we'll see. It's really early to talk about that, but it's definitely a fascinating topic of discussion just because there's so much like implied and there's so much weight like on the back end of it. So we'll be talking about it in the future as we know more and as we see it in action. I'll probably subscribe just so I can monitor like how it's being treated on the app and what exactly is happening. But in the meantime, we will wait and see. That's all we got for you guys today for episode 19. And we will not have an episode next week because I'm going to be on vacation for an entire week. And but when I get back, as soon as I get back, I promise that my first priority will be episode 20. Probably not. But episode 20 will come after because we do like making this podcast quite a bit. This is our first year on it. And we are constantly trying to improve it for you guys. So if you have any feedback at all, please hit us up on Twitter. Leave us a review on iTunes. You can follow .esports on Twitter, which is the company that we write for, the company that's hosting this podcast. It's just DOT Esports. And you can also follow Zing and myself if you want to DM us, at us, or just see what we got to say about League. My Twitter handle is just my first and last name. It's Aaron McCunas. That's AARONMICKUNAS. Zing, what's yours?
I'm Zing the Lee, XINGTHELI.
And Joe is also on Twitter, I believe, right, Joe?
Yep.
What's
my Twitter handle is 2D. Okay, I'll just spell it out. It's the number 2D, another D, OC.
2D Doc.
Yeah, 2D Doc.
Awesome. You can. I don't know if your DM is open.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
So Joe writes a lot about League as well. So feel free to reach out to him if you have any thoughts. And we will catch you guys on episode number 20. Thanks for tuning in.
Yeah, Bye-bye. Thanks so much for you guys having me.